Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual TrekCon 5 with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
And, of course, Melissa Longo of the Toyota Longo Group.
Hello, hello.
We were just talking very quickly that Melissa is related to a big-time Toyota dealership, so we're all going to get discounts soon. We have a very special guest right now, everybody. This is the important thing. He's the one where you go, hey, don't I know you from? And he says, yup, it's Randy James. How are you, Randy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Randy has been in The Next Generation episodes and movies, right? He's been in Deep Space Nine. He's been in over 90 episodes and movies. So chances are you've seen him a bunch of times in a bunch of things. And we can't wait to talk about it. He's also a stand-in. He's got so many stories to share, and he's going to do it right now. First things first, yes, Randy, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Did you move to LA to be an actor? Or did you move to LA because you're like, I just got to get into Star Trek?
Well, that's a funny way of framing it, because when I moved to LA, there was no Star Trek except for reruns. So definitely would have been the former. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I started doing theater in high school. I later did some dinner theater and that kind of thing. It was, it felt good to me. I went out to LA thinking I could maybe do this, like everybody else who moves to LA. And I mean, it's a whole different ball game there, as everybody knows. And so I ended up getting what we call a real job. And I managed an auto parts store for about 7 years before I got laid off. And then somebody suggested that they knew people who were doing extra work. And I'm like, well, there's an idea. And I mean, and this was back in the 80s when there was no union for extras, and the big catch-22 for actors was still there, where you couldn't get an agent unless you had a SAG card, you couldn't get an audition unless you had an agent, and you couldn't get a SAG card unless you'd already had a SAG job. And that's a fact. They have changed that now, but it was that bad. Anyway.
So you heard about this extra work and you just decided, hey, this is some way to make some money and do something, be around the industry that I actually came out here for.
Exactly. I thought, well, I've been here 7 years and I've never been on a movie set. Maybe I should try that out. Yeah. And at first, in fact, let me back up just a little bit. While I was doing the auto parts thing, there was a salesman who used to come and see me, and he was actually the official. I can't think of his name right now. The singer Kenny Rogers, right?
Ooh.
Nice.
He was the official Kenny Rogers lookalike. Anyway, we got to be friendly, and he knew that I was an actor, and I'm still working in a parts store. He called me up one day and said, and I'm afraid I'm telling this story backwards, but he called me up and said he was doing a play in Simi Valley, and that somebody dropped out, and would I like to go and do that? Well, again, I'm telling this story backwards because it's funnier if I tell it from the other side, where because I'm working on Deep Space Nine, and we were probably sometime deep into season 1 or even later when the prop guy said to me, he said, I had dinner in Simi Valley last night. You know who waited on me? And I said, who? And he said, Aaron.
Yeah.
I said, Nog, Aaron?
Yeah.
and this little light bulb went on inside my head, because I'm like, wait a minute. The kid that I did the play with in Simi Valley 5-6 years ago was a waiter at Marie Callender's.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't seen Aaron, I had only seen Nog, which is how it is when you work with people with prosthetics. They're already in it when you come to work. Anyway, the next time I saw Aaron and he was wearing the Nog head, I said, hey, Aaron, did we do a play together? And he said, "Yeah, I thought that was you."
Wow.
That's amazing.
It was crazy.
Wow.
Wow.
And
That's
that
great.
was what, like around 93, 94, something like that.
We started shooting Deep Space in 92, and I believe that the play we did together was somewhere about 86 or 7. So it was like a full 5 years earlier.
Wow.
And, you know, never again, there was no Star Trek even to think about at the time. But yeah, so Star
That's
Trek had its
amazing. That is so cool.
It is.
But you were doing Next Generation even before that. Is that correct? Maybe starting in the late
Yeah,
80s.
yeah.
So,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you're one of the few people, along with Colm Meaney, you know, Chief O'Brien, along with Worf, Keiko. There are a few people that were the same character in Next Generation as Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine was just like, I want him, I want her, you can stay, I want this guy. And you were one of those people that moved over because your character, Ensign Jones, and later on Lieutenant Jones, first started in Next Generation and continued on as the same character in Deep Space Nine. Was there any kind of conversation about that where they're saying like, hey, we're going to move you over to Deep Space Nine now? Because I believe this was instead of, not as well as, it wasn't going at the same time. You weren't. And they just said, all right, your character's been transferred to Deep Space Nine. You're just going to be there now.
Mhm.
That would have been interesting. No, it was super cool because the way that it turned out. When I started doing Next Generation in 1988, which was second season, I started out as a waiter, and that's another story, but we'll go there in a minute. There was no union for extras at all. The Screen Extras Guild had just broken up. And so all of the
Wow.
Next Generation extras were non-union folks. We were basically making about $8 an hour, and that was better than the $5
Wow.
an hour that we got everywhere else. Seriously,
Right.
each one of those actors on the show had a person who was assigned as their stand-in, and that's typical. So all the actors had a stand-in, except for people like O'Brien, who would come and go. He wasn't a regular, right? So the fact that they threw me in to stand in for O'Brien every once in a while became a really golden key for me, because I actually read in the newspaper. Remember newspapers? I read in the newspaper there was going to be a spinoff of about a space station, and that Colm Meaney and Rosalind were going to be moving over to that show. And I was really, first of all, I was surprised because O'Brien had a fairly small part on Next Gen. But at any rate, director of photography Marvin Rush, who later did every show that came down the pike, but he was doing Next Gen. And the DP is who you work for or with the most when you're a stand-in, right? And so we could see as extras that a stand-in was a better job. And so everyone was going to Marvin and saying, I'd really like to work on your new show. And he said, I don't have a cast. I don't know what I need yet. But I knew that O'Brien was going over. So I went to Marvin and I said, congratulations on the new show. And by the way, you know, I've been standing in for O'Brien. He goes, oh, go speak to Vanita, who's the new AD, who I'd never met. I went over to Vanita and she said, you know Marvin? And he said, yes, you're hired.
Wow.
This guy.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
And then to top it off, to put some icing on the cake, that was the very first time, the very first season that SAG was welcoming the extras into and stand-ins into the thing.
Wow.
So I've been doing this 4 or 5 years trying to get my SAG card, and all of a sudden Central calls me up for my call time and said, have you ever been Taft-Hartley, Randy? And I'm like, no. And they said, well, today's the day. So all of a sudden I'm union, and I have a full-time stand-in job for one of the main characters. And believe me, I wasn't going to let that job go for love or money.
Yeah.
That's
So did
daily
you-
work right there.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
it is. No, I was gonna say, did you were your experiences on TNG and Deep Space Nine different or similar?
Completely different, really, because, well, for one thing, on Next Gen, it was pretty spotty. You know what I mean? I might work 3 days in a week, but then I might not work again for a couple of months. I mean, it was just whenever they needed extras and that kind of thing. Plus, it was much less money. And, I hate to say too much about it, but maybe it was the union thing, but the actors, most of the actors, there are some exceptions, and I'll get there, but they really didn't want to. It was kind of like they wish you weren't there, and it kind of felt that way, except for guys like Frakes. Frakes has always been like the greatest guy in the world. He knew everybody's name. Hey, how are you? What are you doing? He was super great. Other folks, you could just tell they didn't really want to talk to you. But when I was, then, well, and the difference between being an extra and a stand-in is a stand-in is on the crew sheet. I mean, you're actually part of the crew. You get to go to the wrap parties. You get the Christmas presents, all of that stuff.
Nice.
So money, it was completely different from my perspective. Yes.
Randy, when you're working as a stand-in and the person that you're not standing in for is not in that episode, do they still use you in the background as a background actor, or do you just not work when you're not standing in for someone?
Little bit of both. They might have us come in. We might not have anybody to stand in for, but we'd be the promenade extras that they see through the door from Odo's office or something like that. So basically, Deep Space Nine really took care of their stand-ins. And in fact, to go further, they went the extra mile for the background folks too, because the SAG rule only required that the first 12 extras be union. And that would include the stand-ins. Well, there's 7 of us. And that means there's only 5 union slots open. But Deep Space Nine made the decision that they were going to pay all of their background union. And I understand the sense of that because they're making clothes for people and they wanted people who were going to be there when they called them. But that made a huge living. The people who played Bajorans for 7 years made a really good living and got health care and all that stuff. So,
That's
Deep Space Nine was my best job ever, for sure.
And by the way, everybody, check this out. He was in the most famous Deep Space Nine episode ever, Move Along Home.
Yes.
There he is. Right there.
Yeah.
Lest we forget. And that picture beforehand where you were playing the 10 Forward waiter, it looked like you were that character for like the 2nd season of Next Generation. And then later on, they had you as Jones. You were in a uniform. But that was the episode that we pulled up called A Matter of Honor, where Riker is going over to the Klingon ship and he's testing out the Klingon food ahead of time. And that's you serving all of that Klingon food. Do you remember that Klingon food? Was it even really food? Was it colored Jello? What was going on there? Do you remember any of that?
I remember it very well. In fact, I can tell you the date because it's the day after my sister's birthday. It was December 8th, 1988. I happened to be sick as a dog that day. I don't know if it was the flu or like a really horrible cold, but it was pretty bad. And so that's number one. Number two, yes, it was real food, but I don't think I know anybody who would eat it. Because it was Klingon food, they put as many gross things as they could think of on this tray. There was an octopus, maybe that's not too bad. There was a sheep's eyeball. And yes, these were real things that came from some kind of weird, food store that would sell that kind of stuff. At any rate, I remember it being a bunch of gross stuff, but worse than that, after it'd been under the lights for a couple of hours, it started to stink. Oh my God, to high heaven.
Oh, God. I thought you were going to say, but worse than that was when Riker burped.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh no!
Someone asked me what did they use for gach, and I happened to know that we weren't doing live gach. So he was sitting there happily eating. It was fried cabbage, which he would spit into a bucket after they said.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Randy, when we were doing the rewatch for Deep Space Nine, I always point out, different people that I can see in the background that don't get the kind of acknowledgement. I remember pointing you out a few times in our rewatch, saying, "That's our guy, Randy." And the other person I would point out is like Dennis Matalone, because people would see him a lot but not know what he was, doing on the set.
I would never catch Dennis, but Srock's got this eagle eye for the two of you. Seriously.
Yeah, because we work so intimately together for so many hours. It's like you can't not have a friendship relationship with somebody that you spend so much time with, and that's how I felt about you and Todd, Bennett, Mr. Bennett. There's a lot of us to just hang out on the backlots together. But my question is, about the opportunities that you were given. You were given the opportunity to get the Screen Actors Guild to become SAG and get your pay scale. But I also want to know about, were you ever given opportunity to get lines, which would give you that paid bump? And also, were you, well, first, let me know, were you given lines and able to get even that extra pay bump?
The word given bothers me.
Okay. You had to take him. Did you take some lines?
Yanked them. No. That's actually, that's a great question. And it's part of my story. Having worked on Next Generation for 4 years already, I had been around the same producers, the same rules, the same everything, more or less. And I had learned pretty early on that there was a Rick Berman rule that no extra or stand-in would ever be given a line. And I think the word was again, meaning they did it like first season, and I don't know with who, and I don't know what it was. I just know that there was a rule that was never going to happen. Okay, number one.
Wow.
So, cut to a year later, when we're towards the end of the first season of Deep Space Nine. By then, I had been featured fairly often as a security guard, which was a good spot, But so there came an episode where a security guard had a line and he didn't get killed. Benita Ozols Graham, one of my heroes in my story, she was our first AD the first season. She was really great with extras and stand-ins. She was always trying to get something a little bit more for us. At any rate, she was part of the reason. She was the one who decided that I would be the security guard. And once I was the security guard, I was kind of always the security guard. Anyway, she found out there was a line coming up, and she came to me and she goes, "Randy, there's a security guard in the next episode and he has a line." And I'm like, "Uh-huh." And she said, "That should be you." I'm like, "Well, I love the way you're thinking, but they're never going to do it." And so, "Oh, no, Randy, you are the guard. This has to be." In fact, I had just been featured like the week before arresting Rumpelstiltskin, right?
Ah!
Yes.
Anyway, so she actually cared enough about it, God bless her, and went to David Livingston, who was one of the producers I knew all the way back to Next Gen. And David was friendly with me. He liked me just fine. So they were having a conversation, and she said, "David, Randy should be the guard." And David said, "Yeah, I like Randy too, but Rick's never going to go for it." At which time Rick Berman walked in the room and he said, "What?" And they said, So they told him, and he said, let him come in and read. Well, that part really, really surprised me. So, and I mean, it was one line, Chief O'Brien's orders. Anyway, I went in, I said the line, the whole table laughed. I swear to God, and I don't know. I don't know. Oh, he speaks English. I don't know. Anyway, so to make it worse, they did not give me the part. And that did not surprise me. I knew there was a rule. But so anyway, and of course it was, so Vanita comes to me like the next day. Well, she said they said you did a really good job, but they want somebody a bit older and gruffer looking. And I said, that's funny because I just got that way. But anyway, she said the guy who got the part has a commercial the day before, and there's a possibility that it'll go 2 days. And if it goes 2 days, he won't be available, and we're going to use you.
Nice.
Oh.
So at least you did well enough.
Yeah.
You were second best.
You were in the running. You were in the running.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so obviously it did happen. But I mean, there was such a big deal about it. They would not put my name on the call sheet. They would not put my name on my trailer that I had that day. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Really. And but at any rate, and I got to tell you, I was so nervous because of all the, we're breaking this rule. And I mean, I really felt like my comm badge was probably jumping off of my chest when they shot that scene. We did it in one take. I was first scene of the day. I went home having made SAG minimum. I was feeling really good.
Where?
I'm just saying.
What was the set?
Go ahead.
What was the set? What was the set? Where were you?
This was Dramatis Personae. It was stage 4, and it was right outside of Cisco's office. It's when everybody was being really weird, and Cisco's in there making the clock.
Right. I was thinking it might be
Udo's
this, but
going to find out what's going on, and he asked me what I'm doing there, and I told him Chief O'Brien's orders. And God bless Renee too, because I only had one line, but he gave me something to play off of, and I thanked him for that the next day. He was a great man.
Oh,
what was the playoff that he gave you?
What are you doing here?
Awesome.
Love it.
Love it. That's a great setup.
What was this scene that I just pulled up here? I'm trying to remember it. You are sitting in what looks like Odo's office, the security office, and he's coming up to you. He's saying something to you, but I guess you're not saying anything in return. You've got a stack of pads. You've been working all night. What was this?
The episode is Fascination. It's the beginning. This one makes me crazy because I probably had my very best screen time in this scene. And no, I did not have a line. He's talking to me. Then Majel comes in and they both end up talking to me, and I never said a word.
Yeah, that was like, oh man, even a sound effect, like a yes or a no, is like makes all the difference in pay scale, right?
Yo, absolutely. And what's even worse is that this is right after the teaser and the front credits are rolling by, which I'm not in. I mean, but yeah, that was actually a fun scene. But the sad truth is that if that guard had a line, it may very well have been someone else that they hired out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Instead of giving it to
crazy.
I'm just saying, that's how weird it was. But
yeah, that's nuts. So was that which one was your favorite episode to work on?
Overall, or that I had lines?
Overall. Right. The best one you had the best experiences in.
Well, one of my favorites to watch, and I was so excited when we were doing it, was Trials and Tribulations.
Yes.
it was the 30-year anniversary of Star Trek, and we were combining our show with Captain Kirk and Spock's show. And I told everybody when we did it, I said, "You guys, this is the coolest thing we've ever done." I said, "It might be the coolest thing we ever do." But I thought that was pretty special.
I got a two-part question for you. One, did you ever do any stunt work? Because sometimes people would be recruited into doing stunt work, especially if you were the same size and build as, let's say, O'Brien. That was the first question. And the other question is, were you able to take home any souvenirs from your experiences?
I do have a couple tribbles.
All right. All right.
And I do have, they would not let me, it's funny you should have that. I went through a lot of uniforms over the years, starting with the waiter and then the red TNG spandex one, and then the gold uniform on Deep Space, and then the gray. And then they kept I'd come into work someday and I was supposed to put on a costume, and I'd go to and like, "Where's my uniform?" And they go, "Oh, we used it on a stunt guy the other day and we blew it up." But and so at the very, very end, when we were all done, I saw my old spandex uniform, which probably wouldn't still fit me even then, but I saw it on the shelf, and it was made for me, and it was a long time ago. And I told Bob Blackman, the designer, I said, "I'll give you $50 for that." And he said, "Oh, we can't do that. They cost $1,500 to make." And I'm like, "Yeah, except it's a rag and nobody's ever going to use it."
How about 70? And he's like,
"What's that?"
Yeah, he says, "We would never." All right, 70. All right.
Yeah,
I will say,
and I don't know what I'd even do with it, because seriously, I'm sure I couldn't get into it anymore. But
auction.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it had your name on the inside tag.
Oh yeah,
right?
Usually they had your name on the inside.
That is correct, and I heard one of them was sold at a auction, so that tells you what they really want.
Yes, it was sold at the It's a Wrap sale and auction on eBay, and that pair of pants was also worn, story goes, by Avery Brooks.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we weren't the same size, but
for one episode you were, apparently.
Wow. Okay. The legend continues.
Yes.
Let me just finish the last part of that other question. I do have two of my civilian shirts. One of them, and I'm thinking one of them would be a good eBay sale, because it was a gold kind of sparkly shirt with a weird little collar that I wore on Next Generation as a civilian, and I wore it on Deep Space Nine, and I can show you screenshots from both. So I do have that shirt. The wardrobe lady said, "Oh, Randy, you're the only one ever wore that shirt. That's yours." So, and then there was a sweater that I used to wear, and she let me have that too. So I did get a couple.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And never any stunt work, right? You never did any of the stunt work
on the pilot. When we were on Cisco's ship, was that the Saratoga? Sorry if I meant anyway.
Yeah,
Cisco's ship, where we're seeing the scene where they got attacked by the Borg and his wife died and all that. There was an explosion. Well, first of all, I was dressed in my old spandex uniform, because that was the correct uniform for that show, right, or for that ship. And we made my hair black so you wouldn't recognize me, right? and there was a small stunt in that scene, and I asked, first of all, I don't really want to be a stunt guy, but this one looked really easy to me, and I knew it would be more money, so I said, "David, I'll do the stunt." "Oh no, Randy, you'll hurt yourself." So no.
Okay. No. You tried. At least you tried.
Here's one image that I just think is really cool that people might enjoy, because you are sharing a scene with two legends. You are in between Captain Sisko and Gul Dukat, and you're holding a phaser rifle, and they're both quaking in their boots because you are stealing this scene. But I don't remember exactly which episode this was. Do you remember this? And did it feel like you just kind of got a front row seat to a really cool show between the two of them?
All the time. I mean, they call this doing background work. I'm sorry, that's not background, but yeah, that is Way of the Warrior Part 1.
Nice.
So it was Warp's first episode. There's actually another. I was in two places at once at that moment because ADs don't talk to each other. So that was on the Defiant, and they're trying to figure out who's a changeling and who's not, right? And I'm guarding Ducat because we all know I'm guarding against Ducat, really. And we walk into the room, and he has a line about, "Will you please tell this security guard he doesn't have to point the gun at me all the time," or something like that. And so, of course, we don't change that. But then immediately cut to Quark's bar, the famous root beer scene between Garrick and Quark, and I'm getting up out of Garrick's seat.
What?
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
You were the changeling they were looking for.
You were the changeling. Oh, now we know.
Wow.
You should have got paid twice.
The way that happened was we had two different ADs on the day. So I knew that I was in the scene with Ducat on the bridge or on the Defiant. And we go in Monday morning, and I didn't know what we were doing or the time sequence or any of that. But I put on my uniform like the call sheet said, and I went into Quark's and B. So what happened was Brian Whitley was the first AD when we did the Ducat scene, and BC Cameron was the first AD when we did the bar scene. So she didn't know anything about what we had done on the Defiant. But I try not to let these things happen anyway. I could see that the station was pretty empty and the bar was pretty empty. And I felt like I probably shouldn't be here. And I went to BC and I said, "Is the Defiant back yet?" And she goes, "Yeah, the Defiant's back." She didn't look. She didn't care, but she didn't know why I was asking. Anyway,
gotta make our day.
I had no idea.
Gotta make our day.
A direct cut, but I should not have been in that scene. But yeah, I kind of was the changeling that day.
I love it. That's so good.
That is great. We just found the error.
And I tried to avoid it. I really think that the producers, I think they thought it was my fault because BC wasn't going to cop to it. You know what I mean? And so I think they kind of felt like, "Oh, that guy wants to be in everything."
It's never the extras' fault. We just, as an actor, you just go where they tell you to go.
Yes.
So, Randy, you were there till the end of Deep Space Nine. Am I correct?
Yes.
And if so, were you in the last scene of What You Left Behind in Big Spar?
Because I'm an idiot, no.
What? Really? What happened with that?
I was there. That's the picture that Melissa was asking about earlier. I did take a picture of me and Aaron that day. Were you there, Sirach? You weren't there, were you?
I was there somewhere. I remember that. Yeah, I remember it.
Okay, well,
actually, I definitely was there because I was getting my script signed by everybody.
Yes, always the opportunist. This guy, he gets it.
Yes, I was like, "This is perfect. Everybody's here. It's perfect time to get his signature."
It's like your yearbook. That's what it was.
Yeah.
You're like 18. You're like, "Can you sign my yearbook?"
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know why I was so dumb that I didn't do that because I don't remember doing that. But as you can see, I don't wear my hair real short. And and in the old days, I used to wear my hair pretty long. And so 12 years of a Starfleet haircut was kind of wearing on me. And we were getting towards the very end. And one guy was growing a mustache and another. Anyway, they had permission. Like it was okay now. But so I was starting to let my hair grow out, and I was starting to grow a mustache, I think. which again, this is stupid. When I watched the show, I'm like, dude, you should have just cut your hair and been in that scene. But anyway, it was because of that I stayed out of it. I am in that episode. We see me all kind of blowed up. There's still the battle on the Defiant, and two other stand-ins are kind of helping bring me in, and I'm all burned up and stuff. And so we don't really know if Jones survived. Of course he did, but I think he was in the hospital while they were having that party.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned 2 times that you met Aaron. What was the second time?
Well, the second time was on Deep Space Nine, like I said.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, but we also did 2 plays together, because while we were actors together in the first one, and the second time was, and you might remember this, Melissa, because I think it was early in your marriage, but he came to me. We were on the Defiant working one day, and he said, "Randy, I'm going to direct a play, and I'd like you to be in it." And I was really kind of surprised, but I can't even think of the name of the Borrowed Time, I guess. Yeah, it was in Conejo Valley. What's that town out there?
Agora Hills, maybe
Thousand Oaks. So Aaron asked me to be in a play, and it wasn't a really big part, but it wasn't real small. And he said, basically, I was playing death, but he was directing. And I told him, I said, well, Aaron, I work here, and I'm here a lot, and the hours are crazy, so I don't know how much I could commit to rehearsals and whatnot. But he said he'd work around me, and I said, okay. And so, but as a result, I missed a lot of rehearsals, but I was determined that I wouldn't miss any during tech week. Sadly, he took a job as a page, and he wasn't there the last week. And so I felt it was kind of weird. But anyway, we actually did 2 plays together.
Randy, during the off season, like when we were wrapped up for the season and we had our own time to ourselves, what did you like to do during those times? Did you do other work and try to book other jobs, or did you just use it for like vacation? Couldn't wait to get away from the sets?
It depended on the year. A lot of times there wasn't a whole lot to do. TV was all shut down during hiatus, and if you could catch a movie, great. But usually I would come home to the Midwest and visit family and stuff, because it was kind of like summer vacation. So Chris Crossgrove, I think it was, who said that this is a lot like high school, only with money.
All right, I'll take it. That sounds like a good gig.
Yeah. Does.
Yeah.
He was the camera operator on throughout Deep Space Nine, and when and then oftentimes he would also be the DP for a few episodes, like when the DP would also direct. So he's very well known, cool guy. So Randy, we only have you for a few more minutes here, and we do very much appreciate you taking the time. We knew it was going to be a fun time. We knew it was going to be kind of nostalgic, but it's also really cool to get the behind the scenes chatter, because sometimes directors, they have their story, actors have their story, but people behind the scenes, the crew that are just kind of sitting and watching or listening, or every day is very different for them, whereas the actors are coming in, they're doing their lines. Is there anything else you can think of that we as viewers, or Sirach as being in front of the camera, that we don't know about? Were there lunchtime shenanigans? Was there one time where Worf sneezed on you? I mean, he sneezed on everybody. You could say it.
Well, I don't think I have a good answer to your question, but bringing up Worf just makes me laugh, because he always called me Gene Kelly, and I called him Mikey. And I called him Mikey just because I thought it was funny to call a big guy like that Mikey. But it started, the Gene Kelly thing was, we were working on Next Gen. We're working on stage 16 one day. And I'm sorry, I don't think this answered your question, but it's just kind of
okay.
funny.
We'll take it.
My hair was a bit more slicked back than usual that day. And Michael comes out of the stage and he goes, "You look a lot like Gene Kelly." And I had never heard that one before, although it's certainly not an insult. And shortly after that, Brent came out the door and he said, "Doesn't he look like Gene Kelly?" And Brent goes, "Yeah, he does kind of." So from that day forward, he always called me Gene Kelly. And I mean, I kind of relied on it. And it was funny, on Deep Space, we'd been working together, a while. And I walked by one day and he goes, "Gene," and I go, "You can call me whatever you want, but do you even know my name?" And he goes, "Bill John Gene."
I thought you were going to say, there's another famous Gene already on the show.
Yeah.
If you're going to call me Gene, you got to say Gene Kelly. You got to go Gene Kelly.
Yeah, you got to say the whole thing. Yeah. It's a little confusing. Could you dance at all? I mean, was that, I would think that you dancing would have something to do that. Wasn't Gene Kelly a good dancer?
No, it was all about appearances. But it's funny, I forgot to ask Mikey this question when I saw him in Vegas, but I did one day. Do you remember there was one season where it was really raining? In fact, I think it was the same season that I did the play with Aaron. I just remember that it rained all the time, so much that they gave us umbrellas that said Deep Space Nine on them, and we used them.
Oh.
But anyway, but one day I'm leaving the set, and I think it was still daylight, and Michael Dorn was over by his trailer. And it was raining, and I had the umbrella, and I know the song, so for no one but him, I actually sang the whole first verse of "Singing in the Rain," complete with splashing in the puddles around the lamp.
Wow!
And I mean, I got myself soaked, and he just sat there looking at me like I had 3 heads.
Amazing.
And then he sneezed on you.
I don't know about the sneezing problem.
When you saw him in Vegas, did you call him Mikey? And he...
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Mikey.
And I expected him to say Gene Kelly, but he just looked up and he said, "Oh, my God."
Every time I hear Mikey, I think of
Mikey likes it.
Commercial. Yeah, give it to Mikey. He likes it.
Well, and that's older than both of you guys, but that's what I always think of too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Or
so I would we just made a whole meme there with Worf as the Mikey guy in that commercial. It's gonna
he's eating the gach. He's eating the gach out of the bowl.
Exactly. Oh, wow. I can see it. Well, these are some great
Star
stories.
Trek related.
Yeah, right.
I saw that you worked on When Harry Met Sally.
Oh yeah,
that movie. That's awesome.
Tom Hanks?
No, Billy Crystal.
Oh, Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, is that?
Meg Ryan, yeah. That was the Where's the Beef? Or no, that was the I'll Have What She's Having movie, right?
Okay.
That was Rob Reiner's mother who said that one.
Mm-hmm.
He directed
Ooh.
it. But yeah, I was in the restaurant when they come in, and she's early in the movie, and they're having an argument, and she comes in the door and says, "It's just so happens I've had plenty of great sex." And then she realized that she kind of said that a little too loud, and I'm the guy at the table looking up at her like, "Really?"
That's so awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Sorry, I just want to say, hang on real quick. Everybody at home, by the way, if you want to find Randy and follow him on social media, he does have a Facebook actor page. But I just did my own Odo sleuthing. I've been digging around. And the theory that we came up with, that we said, ha, 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 then you were the changeling, snicker, snicker, joke, joke. It's not a joke. And I have proof right now. He's wearing a shirt that says, "Nobody knows I'm a changeling." On his actor page right now. You can go right now and like that picture and let him know that actually this deserves a ha-ha. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
Amazing.
Sirach, what were you saying?
No, I'm just glad that we ran into each other, Randy, at the last time in this Vegas, and I got to kind of reunite with you, and it was really special, man, because I know you have so many stories to tell. Because you were there, man, in the trenches, doing the heavy lifting, even when a lot of people weren't on the set and everybody was back at their trailers. You were on the set.
I'm the only stand-in that made it from the first day to the last day. The only one. There was one other that made it close, but he didn't make it, and that was Odo's stand-in. But at any rate, yeah, I mean, I'm one of the few people who was there first day and last. And by the way, Sirach, we said this. We were talking about this before you arrived today, but I told him how it just did my heart good when you looked up and said Randy, and I mean, I went in not knowing if people would even remember or recognize me. The remember part is stupid, but anyway, it was great, and you're a man of your word. You said we were going to do this, and here we are.
And not to beat a dead horse, but just looking at the back of the shirt, by the way, that you were wearing at a recent convention, it says DS9 Season 4, we're everywhere with regards to the changelings.
Oh, that's a great
That
shirt.
is legit. Is that from Deep Space Nine Season 4?
Sirach should have one of those. It was a crew gift from Ira Season 4.
Wow.
You know what? I'm missing out on a couple of crew gifts. One of them is that shirt, and the other one is the ring, the DS9 ring that everybody has.
The One Ring.
Yeah. And and like every time I see Ira with that ring, I'm like, he's like, I gave it to you. I gave it to everybody. I'm like, no, I didn't get that ring. I don't know where I was. I never got that ring. But yeah.
Just do a sneaky handshake.
If it makes it feel any better, that ring was kind of jagged because I love the ring, but it actually kind of cut into my fingers because it had the DS9 engraved on the side. I'm just saying it wasn't the most comfortable to wear.
Okay.
And
that's
by
a consolation for me.
If you ever had that shirt, it wouldn't have fit you anyway because you would have been about 18 when we got.
Oh yeah. No, it wouldn't fit me anymore. None of that stuff would fit me. That was all onesie stuff that zipped in the back.
That's right.
I've grown a lot of that stuff. Not gonna happen, but But Randy, I'm so glad that we were able to reconnect. And you say you're working on some stuff for your book. Are you going to put a lot of your stories together in like a memoir for people to read and share your story?
That's what I'm thinking, and I'm so lazy that I don't know how much I'll get to it. But here's the thing, Sirach. We weren't supposed to have cameras there, and we didn't have cell phones, so it wasn't like there was a phone in everybody's pocket. But I had a film camera, just a cheapo film camera, in my bag pretty much every day. And I took pictures, pretty openly. It wasn't sneaking around about it. But at any rate, I have behind-the-scenes photos that I've never put on Facebook because I don't want them to be shared widely until, that's, if nothing else, I'm going to make a picture book and tell a little story about each picture. You know what I mean?
Aww.
But it's like when Nana would get a new outfit or the Nintendant or that, I would say, hey, can I get a picture? And they would always comply. And so I've got a lot of interesting shots that nobody's seen yet. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
Looking
cool.
forward to that. Yeah, the stories that go with the pictures and the photographs themselves, and everybody out there knows that it's legit coming from you. A person that was on the scene. So we're going to look forward to that because I think that would be very interesting for people to see, and for those kinds of images to be shared. And you know what, Randy? Also, your memory is all unbelievable. Like the fact that you're like, oh, that was the episode. We were eating this.
Talking about the 90s.
Yeah, you even gave a date. You were like, that's December 8th, 1988. I'm like, bro, that's too good.
So you
well,
have
I
to write a book.
appreciate
You
that,
know all
but,
this stuff.
trust me, there's a Deep Space Nine fan club on Facebook, and they know everything. I mean, you can go look. I've actually put pictures and go. So I saw this picture the other day, but does anybody know what episode this was? Because there are certain episodes I could tell you a lot about, and other ones it's like, oh, I have no idea.
That doesn't sound like Star Trek fans at all. No,
Yeah.
knowing a title based on a picture. I do. On our way out here, everybody remember Randy James, the actor, on Facebook. He has a Facebook page. Check out this cool banner image. This is gorgeous. I don't know if you made it or somebody made it for you, but this is great. It's got this one scene right here that we talked about. Next Generation, First Contact, Generations, Deep Space Nine. This is really cool. So everybody make sure to go over to his page and give him a like. Well, that's about it for us. Everybody go, that's your marching orders. Go give his page a like and follow his stuff and listen to his awesome stories. Randy, this has been so much fun. We really appreciate you taking the time. I feel like we can just hang out here and tell old stories of the 80s and 90s with your amazing memory, but we do appreciate you hanging out with us. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was fun for me too, and I'd be happy to talk to any or all of you anytime you like.
Fantastic. All right. Everybody at home, thank you very much for joining us. Stick around. We have much more for you on Virtual TrekCon 5.
Yeah.